So I think we can begin now. So welcome everyone. I know everyone is very eagerly waiting to listen um, to this, not my words. Uh, Even if you're going through, exploring different pathways to PR, if you're studying in Canada, if you're finding ways to get your citizenship in Canada, I think this will be a right platform and right session that can help you with all the valuable insights. And I know like Canada is going through very unprecedented times. There has been like big breaking news coming up that came yesterday regarding the change in the ministry. We have a new immigration minister now. We have like a lot of things going on, a lot of changes in the immigration policies as well. So I think this is like a right time to conduct this webinar, and we are very fortunate to have Liz Mathew with us. She is a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. Thanks for joining us. So I hope this will be a very engaging session. And don't forget to drop in your questions and your queries in the chat box. Over to you, Liz.
Hello all, nice to have you all here. I am Liz Mathew, as Roshni had just mentioned, and thank you so much for that introduction. So we'll be basically, this particular webinar is looking at the PR pathways in this competitive times. Permanent residence is the main goal that most of the people are looking forward to after their studies in Canada. So we'll be looking at how we can explore the different programs and what can be done. So very competitive times in Canada, and a lot of us are very confused. And this is a presentation. We will be doing this webinar on how to navigate your PR during this competitive times, and options that works for one might not work for the other person. So let's begin with the session. So understanding PR, what is permanent residence? So permanent residence, it is a status that allows individuals from around the globe to settle and live in this diverse and welcoming country. Canada has always been a very welcoming country, and permanent residence is a key step in the immigration process. And granting those who obtain it has rights and privileges. So Canada is a land of opportunities, and making your decisions wisely, that is the key to it. So there are different pathways to get permanent residence in Canada. So some of them we will be looking at briefly, each one of them. So as you can see in the slide here, there are different pathways. Few of them are express entry pathway. Then we have the Provincial Nominee Program, which is the PNP pathway, and the Atlantic Immigration Program, which is the AIP program for the Atlantic provinces. And there is the Family Sponsorship route as well, and the Rural Community Immigration Pilot, RCIP. And we will be dwelling into each of these pathways in depth. And if you have questions, please feel free to leave them in the chat box. And if we do get some time in the end of the presentation, we will look into that. And you can always reach out to us in case we are not able to answer your questions. So the general questions will be addressed when we are looking at it. Okay, so let's go into the first pathway program, which is the Express Entry program. So the Express Entry, it is a immigration pathway for skilled workers, which are occupations in the tier 0, 1, 2, and 3 category. It is one of the very common popular routes, basically. And there are 3 immigration programs which are under the Express Entry. They are the Canadian Experience Class, the Federal Skilled Worker Program, and the Federal Skilled Trades Program. And each of it have different criteria. So if you do decide to put in your Express Entry profile, you got to meet the criteria of either one of these 3 categories before you can put in your Express Entry profile. So we'll look into what is a Canadian Experience Class. It is for skilled workers with Canadian work experience, at least 1 year of Canadian work experience in the last 3 years. So that's very important to note. It has to be within the last 3 years. And the federal skilled worker program is for skilled workers with foreign or Canadian work experience. It should be at least 1 continuous year of paid experience within the same job in the last 10 years. So it should be continuous year. In the Canadian experience class, you have the option, say 1 year of Canadian work experience is what they are saying. So you can split it up. 6 months in a occupation and 6 months in another occupation is fine. Whereas for the federal skilled worker program, it has to be continuous 1 year of paid work experience within the same job in the last 10 years. And then the federal skilled trades program, it is for skilled workers qualified in a trade. And you need to have a minimum of 2 years of work experience in a skilled trade within 5 years before applying. So that is the criteria for the federal skilled trades program. And if you are eligible for one or more of these express entry programs, a profile can be submitted and you will be ranked in the express entry pool using the CRS score, which is the comprehensive ranking system. So you will be given a score based on all the eligibility factors that you have met. And to be invited, you need to have a score about the minimum points score. So the score being invited should match with the CRS score that you already have. And invitations are sent to candidates with the highest scores in the pool. So that is a brief idea of the express entry system. And within the express entry system itself, we have category-based draws, which have been updated just lately for the year 2025. And these are there are category-based draws, which will be happening soon in 2025. And how it works is that you need to gain 6 months of continuous work experience in this specific category, along with meeting one of the 3 express entry program criteria. One of those, we did talk about Canadian experience class, federal skilled worker, federal skilled trade. You need to meet one of the program criteria as well as 6 months of continuous work experience in the specific category. So that's one very important point to be noted. I know it is very common that people just catch the 6 months of continuous work experience in a specific category and that's it. But you need to make sure that you need to meet one of the 3 express entry program criteria as well. So the categories, the updated categories by IRCC are the French language proficiency category, the healthcare and social service occupations category, then the STEM occupations, science, technology, engineering, and math, then the trade occupations are there, agriculture and agri-food occupations are there, and the education occupations. So when we look at these categories, compared to 2024, quite a lot of the occupations have been added newly to the categories, which is a good sign. So IRCC will be sending out draws, say like healthcare. Earlier, it was just the healthcare occupation. So now they have added the social service occupations as well. So be it your social workers or development social workers, they are all part of the categories right now, which is a very, the category-based draws look promising for 2025. We're just waiting on them keenly from IRCC. And the STEM occupations as well, they have taken down a lot of these STEM occupations from earlier, and they have added in new occupations. Like one of the new one is the insurance brokers and agents. So if you are one of those categories, put in your express entry profile if you do meet the criteria. And the trade occupations, there are new ones added into it as well. And the agricultural and agri-food occupations, there is only one NOC code in that category based for now. So, and the education occupations. That is a fairly very new category that has been added. So teaching assistants, teachers, if you do meet your eligibility criteria, there you go. Put in your express entry profile and do not delay. It looks very promising. And the French language proficiency, that has been a great asset. Learning French is a great asset, as Express Entry has already invited 10,000 plus candidates in the year 2025, which has been up to date. So if you are in the process of learning your French, there you go, keep doing it. And let's look at the Express Entry pool. So looking at the Express Entry pool, the pool keeps changing, the number of people in the different category ranges. So as you can see, the draws have been happening from 2025. Only draws for Canadian Experience Class and Provincial Nominee programs have been happening. So if you look at the CRS score range here, from the range of 451 to 500, there is already 66,000 people waiting in there. So that the 520s, 527 was the last CEC category draw. So there are chances the scores could come down, but maybe after the LMIA points are being deducted in the spring of 2025, as IRCC had mentioned, but we do not have a specific date as of yet. We'll have to keep waiting for it. So you can see it's a very competitive number of candidates that are already in the pool. So be part of it and work towards getting your scores improved. That is what can be done to get your invitation at this point. So the next PR pathway that we will be looking at is the provincial nominee programs. So what are provincial nominee programs, PNP programs? They are for workers who have the skill, education, and work experience to contribute to the economy of a province or territory. So it's for a particular province or territory. So every province have their own immigration pathways and streams, and they are not common, or it's not a general program for all provinces. So once PR is received, you will need to live and settle down in that province, as you have been given nomination based on that province as they require your skills. So you'll have to live and settle down in that province. And each province has its own immigration programs with different requirements. And in a province, some streams may target students, some may target skilled workers, and some semi-skilled workers. So there's different pathways in the PNP programs for the province. And most of the PNP programs require you to have an employer job offer in the province to be eligible for the PNP programs in the province. And there is different types of PNP. There are some PNP pathways which are linked to your express entry. So where you have your express entry profile created, which is mandatory, and based on your express entry profile, the province will invite you off the express entry pool. So that's the PNP linked express entry program. And there is also another type of express entry, which is the different type of PNP process where it is not linked to your express entry profile in any way. You got to go ahead and put in your expression of interest in that particular province's pathway. Basically, it's an expression of interest. And every province has their own PNP pathways and streams. And we will look at some of the provinces briefly. Let's look at the Ontario PNP program. So the Ontario PNP program is the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program. So how that really works is that the ONIP recognizes and nominates people for permanent residents who have the skills and experience, and they do contribute to the Ontario's economic needs. Basically, that's what it is. And ONIP, they have particular 8 different streams. And Ontario's PNP linked express entry, as I did mention, there is a PNP linked express entry, as well as there is PNP on its own. So we are looking at Ontario right now, and Ontario also has its PNP linked express entry program, and that is the human capital stream. Human capital stream, apart from that, there is the skilled trade stream and the French speaking skilled worker stream. So these are the PNP, Ontario's PNP linked express entry programs, and Ontario's non-express entry programs from this 8th stream. Those are employer job offer supported. So it is the employer job offer international student stream, employer job offer foreign worker stream, employer job offer in-demand stream. So those are the Ontario's non-express entry programs. And if you also have the master's or PhD from an Ontario university, there are streams for that as well, which is the master's graduate stream, or the PhD graduate stream is also there. And the initial step, what you got to do for the non-express entry PNP pathway is to submit an expression of interest. And for the express entry linked PNP programs, as I mentioned earlier, what you got to do initially is to register your profile in the express entry pool, create your profile so that ONIP knows that you wish to be invited. Okay, and after your ONIP expression of interest is submitted, what you do is the province will be sending out invitations. So after you put in your expression of interest in the ONIP PNP non-express entry pathway, you put in your expression of interest and you are waiting for the province to send you an invitation based on streams. So the new stream they had mentioned is that there will be regional draws. So how that works is that the Regional Economic Development through Immigration Pilot Program, the READY program, they have already launched it. It's a 1-year initiative that will be running from January 2nd, 2025 up to December 31st, 2025. It's a pilot program. So they are basically seeing how these regional draws can help out for ONIP. So put in your expression of interest for ONIP. So that is based on communities. They have selected 4 pilot communities for the READY pilot program, REDI, and the 4 communities are the Lanark County, Leeds and Greenville, the Sarnia Lambton, and the city of Thunder Bay. So if you are in one of these 4 communities, there you go. You have a high chances of getting your draws. So far, there has been no draws for the ONIP PNP pathways. We are still waiting on them for the year 2025. And hopefully we can see a draw soon. So we'll be in a better idea to see what is the cutoff score that they will be inviting for this program. So say if you are part of the ONIP International Student Stream, you do not have to wait. Say you finished your studies in Ontario, you do not have to wait until you meet a certain number of years of experience to put in your expression of interest. As soon as you get your full-time employment, your employer is ready to support you with an employer form, fill out the details regarding the employer's revenue, how many full-time people are working in that particular organization. If an employer is ready to give you that employer form with all that details, and you have a full-time job offer and you are working there full-time, you can go ahead and put in your expression of interest right away. So there is no waiting time there, and as long as you meet the low-level cutoff for that particular NOC code too. So these are the basic criteria that you need to be creating to know in order for you to create the expression of interest. And the READY pilot is a pathway for permanent residents, for skilled workers with a job offer who wants to live and work in the pilot communities that I have already mentioned. Okay, so let's move on to another province. We've been talking about Ontario this far, and let's look at the New Brunswick. There has been quite a lot of changes in this province. New Brunswick immigration pathways have gone through so much changes recently, and the eligibility requirement for many programs and pathways have changed for 2025. And as per February 5th, 2025, what New Brunswick has said is that there will be a 50% reduction in permanent residence nominations. So in New Brunswick, there is the PNP pathways, and a lot of people have been waiting for those PNP invitations. However, the invitation numbers that they had invited for 2024 was 5,500. And that allocations will be dropping to only 2,750 this year. So that is, that's a huge drop, because there are several programs in New Brunswick, and the allocations will be split between the provincial nominee programs, which is the 1,500, and the Atlantic Immigration Program, where only 1,250 allocations will be received. So as you can see, it will be split. Even that 2,750 nominations will be split in between the programs. And also the New Brunswick student connection under the New Brunswick Express Entry stream will not be returning in 2025. That is also a huge change. And also several occupations are excluded from the invitation list compared to the year 2024. Some of them are the food service supervisors, the cooks, bakers, restaurants, and food service managers. Those will be eliminated out of the PNP pathways, as well as the Atlantic immigration programs. And the provincial government has presented its concerns. They are very upset by it. The New Brunswick PNP programs, they are very upset by it that the cut has happened. So they have requested the federal government for the changes, and conversations are happening. Let's hope that in due time changes will happen. And due to the limited spaces, the government, the PNP program, is planning to focus on priority sectors such as health, education, construction, and trades, while supporting other sectors with limited allocation. And workers in some occupations will be restricted from participating, like how I mentioned. Few of them I have already mentioned in here. And the expression of interest are submitted to the New Brunswick Express Entry stream. They are not processed on a first come, first served basis. Expression of interest are submitted through the INP portal. And once you submit the expression of interest, you're placed in a pool and you remain valid for 365 days. And Immigration New Brunswick will review submitted expression of interest and issue ITAs only to selected individuals through scheduled draws starting in April 2025. So let's move on and let's look at the next province, which is Saskatchewan. So as we are talking about the PNP programs, so that is why we are looking at some of the PNP programs before we move on. And Saskatchewan. How this Saskatchewan province works is that employers and foreign nationals may have to wait on pursuing provincial nominees for permanent residence from Saskatchewan, as there has been cuts to that province as well. And on February 18th, 2025, SINP, the Saskatchewan Immigrant Nominee Program, they have announced a temporary pause on all job approval forms. And foreign nationals and employers who have not yet submitted the job approval forms to the SINP can no longer pursue provincial nominations through the SINPs, job offer-based streams. So the JAF applications that have been received prior to February 18th will continue to be reviewed. And the pause is a result of the federal government's decision to cut SINP nomination allocations by 50% in 2025. It went from 8,000 allocations in 2024, it'll be reduced to 3,625 allocations in 2025. You can see a huge cut will be happening. And just to see a perspective, let's look at the other provinces of how this is affecting other provinces as well. So in Alberta, we can see that it will be reduced from 9,750 in 2024 to 4,875. British Columbia also will be doing that from 8,000 to 4,000. Northwest Territories, 300 to 150. And Yukon also from 430 to 215. And Manitoba also will be reducing their allocations from 9,540 to 4,750 allocations. So that is a huge cut. So is PNP really a good option for people who are thinking of moving provinces? You got to think twice. So we have looked at the different provinces and how these are affecting each of these provinces. I do know that earlier people did make the move thinking that, okay, say if they studied in Ontario, came after their 12th, and they are not able to get an employer to support them, they decide to move to another province. Any of the PNP programs, employer is supportive, but now it worked for some of them, but it is even working for some people even now. But because of the allocations cut, the problem is that even if you meet the criteria for the program, you getting invited for the PNP pathways, you have no guarantee on that, because their processing time has been increased as well as the numbers have been slashed. So that is something that to keep in mind if you do decide to move provinces. So make sure you do go ahead, find an employer that is supportive for your PNP program. If they are supportive for the PNP program, then only decide to move in there and they are supporting you for PNP. Okay, moving on to the AIP program. That was one of the programs, PR pathway programs, the Atlantic Immigration Programs. So this is a PR program targeting provinces such as New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, or Newfoundland and Labrador. And you will need a job offer from a designated employer in the Atlantic Canada to participate in the program. So not all employers will be able to help you for the AIP program. You will need to find designated employers and they need to be supportive of your PNP, the AIP program. And to be eligible for the Atlantic Immigration Program, you need to have met the work experience criteria, 1 year of work experience in the last 5 years. And if you are an international graduate of a recognized post-secondary education in Atlantic Canada, you do not need to meet that work experience criteria. And also there is the occupation criteria as well. So if you have tier 0 or 1 occupation, there is education criteria for that. So if you need to have at least 1 year post-secondary education is required, or an ECA. Say if you did do education outside Canada, you just need to do an educational credential assessment either through WES, ICAS, CES. These are all organizations that help you with your educational credential assessments. And you will need to show that you have completed this education outside Canada with the equivalency. And the tier 2, 3, or 4 category occupation, a Canadian high school diploma is required, or an ECA if you have completed your education outside Canada. And there is also language requirement. So CLB 5 for tier 0, 1, 2, 3 category, and CLB 4 for tier 4 category. And another criteria is show that you have enough money to support yourself and your family when you get to Canada. And if you're already living in Canada and working in Canada with a valid work permit, you don't need to show that proof as well. Okay, moving on to the next PR pathway is the spousal sponsorship pathway. So spousal sponsorship, so if you have a partner, if you're either in common law relationship, or if you are married and one of your partner is a permanent resident in Canada or a citizen in Canada, they will be able to sponsor the applicant inside or outside Canada. So the inland sponsorship is there and the outline sponsorship is there. So the processing times for both of them, they do vary a lot. So the inland sponsorship at this time is processed, it's quite delayed, and the outland sponsorship is quite faster. And the inland sponsorship, the plus point of that is that you will be able to get a work permit. While you are waiting for that inland sponsorship to be processed, you will be able to apply for a work permit, so you can be in Canada and work while your PR processing is happening. And your outland sponsorship, that is if your spouse or partner is outside Canada. Even if they are inside Canada, the spouse or partner is inside Canada, they still have the option of doing the outline sponsorship, but they will not be able to get that work permit extension option. So that is the spousal sponsorship pathway. And the next PR pathway, let's look at it, which is for people who are in the rural communities. So there is a pathway for them as well, which is the Rural Community Immigration Pilot, the RCIP. It's a fairly new pathway. Well, the newly updated pathway. It was RNIP. It was called earlier RNIP, and now it has been the Rural Community Immigration Pilot. So this pilot was designated to bring immigration to smaller communities by creating permanent residence for skilled workers who want to live and work in one of the participating communities. And there are 14 communities, rural communities, that has been selected for this RCIP program, and 6 communities participating in the Francophone program as well. So that is the FCIP, the Francophone Community Immigration Pilot. So the rural community, rural participating communities in this program is basically, it varies from different provinces. Say like Nova Scotia, Pictou County is there, the Sault Ste. Marie in Ontario, Timmins, Sudbury. There is some province in Manitoba, some in Saskatchewan, Alberta, BC. So this is a very promising program if your employer is ready to support you for this RCIP program. They need to be first, the employer needs to be designated for this program before you can be applying under this program. And to be eligible for the RCIP, the requirements is, there are candidate requirements as well as there are employer requirements. And the candidate requirements is that you should have a valid job offer from a designated employer in the community, have at least 1 year of related work experience in the past 3 years. And you're exempt from work experience criteria if you are an international student who graduated with 2 years or longer course or master's degree or higher lasting less than 2 years. And you got your degree no more than 18 months before your application for permanent residence. So that is the criteria. And the minimum score you need for your language depends on the tier category. So if it is a tier 0 or 1 category, CLB 6, tier 2 or 3 category, you will require a CLB 5. A tier 4 or 5, you will require a CLB 4. And for education outside Canada, you need to get an ECA, which I did mention earlier. That's for people who did their education outside Canada. They need to get their Canadian equivalency done. And there needs to be proof of funds as well. So the proof of funds for RCIP program is basically, depends on the family size, it varies the number, the amount that is required. And each community has their own requirements. And the web pages for this community is yet to be launched. As I mentioned earlier, employer needs to be designated. And in order for them to be designated, the employers, the community web pages need to basically get started, which we are still waiting on that. And let's look at, now that we have looked at all these programs and all these pathways, let's look at the documents that you need to get started. So in order for, when starting to work on your PR, the documents that you need to get started with are the educational credential assessments, which I did mention. If you have completed your education outside Canada, you need to get a Canadian equivalency done. One of the very common organization to do this Canadian equivalency is WES, World Education Services. They are quite fast in their processing. That's why it's very popular. However, there are several other organizations like the CES, ICAS, IQAS. WES normally takes only like degree, normally only does the degree equivalencies, and they only have certain universities that they are accredited with. Whereas the CES, ICAS, they also assess diploma programs. So if you are one of those people who have outside Canada education, get your credential assessments done, your equivalencies done, and also your language proficiency test needs to be done and completed. So CELPIP General, IELTS General, or PTE Core, these are the accepted language tests. So make sure you have that ready. And let's look at the key trends that has been happening. So looking at the trends, the federal pathway trends, the express entry Canadian experience class draws have been happening in the month of January and February, and the PNP pathway program, the PNP draws also has happened in March. We're still waiting for more of the draws in the express entry pathway to come out. And in terms of PNP draws, as the allocations have been reduced, the number of invitations are quite less. So it has been very competitive. So you got to make sure that your application is prepared with a plan B if that doesn't work out for you. And quite a lot of French invitations have been sent. So learning the language French is a definite asset. So I do know that it is quite difficult to learn a new language, but it's still happening. People are conquering that pathway as well. So make sure you explore that pathway as well. And the CEC draw trend in 2025, the lowest score that we have seen is in August 2024, which is the 507. And the highest CRS score is 547, which was in November 2024, because we are looking at this trend from January 2024 up to the state. So that's what is being said. And no general category draws we have been seeing in express entry. There has been only like, they do want to focus to make the people in Canada who are already in Canada permanent residents of Canada. So general draws means they used to be giving opportunities to federal skilled workers, federal trade workers, people who were outside Canada as well. They are doing more Canadian experience class, as they do want to give an option to people who are already in Canada. So looking at the common mistakes when working towards your PR, what has been seen is not planning your PR. So plan your PR right when you initially you enter Canada and work towards your goals. If you plan it ahead, your PR process will be much smoother, as your goal in Canada is permanent residence. So plan it out, and say if you have 3 years of work permit left, do not just lay back and say, okay, I have 3 years, I can get this sorted. Well, initially, when you come to Canada to study or to work, have a clear-cut plan of how you are going to reach your end goal, because it is very competitive right now, as a lot of the programs have been cut short. They are being slashed. So as there's a lot of pressure on the government. And the another mistake that has been seeing is the delaying of getting the ECA, as it does take time. The educational credential assessment does take time. Like, how does it take time? Is that your transcripts most of the time needs to be sent from your university directly to the organization. They will not accept it from you. So the transfer, the emails do take time. So make sure you get that sorted out earlier, because once you do get your educational credential done, it's good for 5 years. So make sure you get that done. And your language test, it is a requirement no matter whichever province you go, you need that. So get that done, either IELTS General, CELPIP General, or PTE Core. And another mistake is filling the express entry profile incorrectly, and which leads to you getting eligible points, but actually when it's time for you to submit your documents after you receive the invitation, you do find out that you are not eligible. It's a very, very common mistake, and it's very heartbreaking to see after you get that invitation, because some of the people, they will not even get that second invitation. It's probably once in their lifetime. And losing that invitation over something that you are not eligible for, make sure you have your profile correctly. That could save a lot of hassles. And another thing is not having your NOC code correctly inputted. So your NOC code does need to match the NOC code that is standardly recognized by IRCC, should match with what you are performing. So it needs to be verified and make sure it is correct, as mistakes do happen, and make sure to have a third eye or a professional check it out. You can do a review with them, so they do have an idea. So you are for sure, you know that, okay, you are doing things correctly. And as I mentioned earlier, moving provinces without a plan or job offer, that is also a very common mistake. And not gaining the eligible Canadian work experience. It's very important to gain that eligible work experience, Canadian work experience, and not all occupations will help you for PR. Say, like, there are some pathways that do accept tier 4 and 5 categories, whereas some pathways only accept 0, 1, 2, 3 category jobs. So make sure you do have the proper job and the eligible Canadian work experience, because I do have a lot of people coming up and they're like, okay, I did finish 1 year of Canadian work experience, and later they find out that their occupation is not eligible for permanent residence. And also understanding the NOC codes and tier categories correctly. As I mentioned earlier, duties need to match up, and maxing out your language scores is very important. And as that is something that is with you, which can be improved, and getting an invitation to apply doesn't always guarantee you PR. Just because you got that invitation to apply, okay, doesn't mean you are going to get that ECOPR. There's a process that has to go in there. If you haven't submitted your documents properly, you will be penalized for that. And then IRCC can give you a rejection right away without asking you additional documents. And your past work experience, if not claimed during your entry into Canada, such as your study permit, it cannot be used for your PR application. And if claimed, it can lead to misrepresentation and can give you a 5-year ban. That's a very, very unfortunate experience that somebody should go through. So make sure you have your experience and everything claimed out properly. So make sure to plan your PR pathway. That is very important. And for our final thoughts, just look into the numbers that has Immigration Canada has put into already. They have said recently, as per the date on October 1st, 2024, the temporary residents that are in the country are 3,049,277. So that's a very big number of temporary residents that are already inside Canada. And the number of permanent residents that they are targeting in 2025 is a very smaller number comparatively. So as you can see that the percentages are very limited. And the minister has already clearly said that everybody who is coming into Canada as a temporary resident will not be receiving permanent residence. So it's very important to know to plan your PR in Canada and to get that sorted out, because if that is not sorted out properly, it will be difficult for you to focus on your pathway. Okay, so let's look into some of the questions that you all have. I know you have been listening to me for quite a lot of time. And over to you, Roshni. Correct. So after 35 years of age, what is the pathway to PR who's already in Canada as a work permit holder? Well, as being age is a factor, definitely. If you are in the federal pathway, age is given a point, whereas the provincial pathways, age is not given a point for it. So provincial pathways are most of the time better for people who are of an aged factor. It depends on the province that you are in. You need to look at the pathways, provincial pathways that are available for that particular province and see if you do meet the criteria, then that might be a better option. Even the federal pathway, say like the Express Entry program, is also up to the age of 44, you still have points for age. So you could max out on other factors other than age, even in the Express Entry profile. So that hopefully I did answer that question. So you got to look at the criterias, and probably PNP pathways would be better for you if you are having difficulty with the Express Entry program.
So moving on to the next question. I have 1 year experience as a line cook. After education, experience, IELTS, WES and everything, I am sitting at 469 CRS score. As per today's IRCC update, that's February 28th, cook is added to the trade category. My question is, will I get an invitation? Will IRCC conduct separate draw for cook on trade category?
Yes, cook is a new occupation that's been added to the Express Entry trade categories. Well, not all cooks can be cooks, because you got to make sure you do meet the NOC code requirements. There are cooks that are working in different type of organizations. So you got to make sure that your NOC code that you are performing and the standard NOC codes, they are matching. All the duties are matching. So will you get an invitation? Well, nobody can predict that. We do not know when the draws are happening and how much the score is going to be. So that is not being told outrightly to anybody. Nobody will be able to know the next draw, when is it going to happen and what is the invitation. So we are waiting for those trade draws. We are hoping it will happen, because last year, looking at the trend from 2024, a lot of trade draws has been happening. So let's hopefully hope that score will be invited.
So the next question is, I have 1.3 years left in my stay back. which is the best place to get PR?
Okay. I do not know much about you. All I know is that you have stayed in this country for 1.3 years. It all depends on all your other factors as well, such as your work experience, your employer supportive, your age factor. Different factors do matter. And as I did mention earlier, moving places or provincial pathways are not for everyone. As long as you do meet all the criteria for the program, even if you meet the criteria for the program, not necessarily you will get an invitation from that province. Even if you make that move, not necessary after you make that move, get that experience, you will get the invitation. So make a wise choice.
Next one is a question regarding, I'm working as substitute EPA in HRCE. I am located in Halifax. I am working from June 2024. I'm eligible to apply for PR as per latest immigration policy. Please help me on this.
Okay. EPA. I'm not too sure what that is. I'm guessing it's something related to education profession. So educational professions have been added into the express entry draws, which I did already mention. Even if you are in Halifax, there is the express entry pathway that you will be able to put in. Looking at the provincial pathways, there is the skilled worker program is there, as well as the AIP program is there. If your employer is supportive for AIP or the skilled worker program in Nova Scotia, go ahead and submit that, and also have your express entry also running. So all the best.
Next question is there still LMIA active? I mean, my employer supports in every aspect to support my PR. How active IRCC process for LMIA going on now?
Okay, so I believe the question is LMIA, do you still get points for LMIA? That's what the question is. LMIA currently at this point in the express entry for the arranged employment, there is still points for LMIA and LMIA exempt work permits. So you will be receiving that 50 points. But as of spring 2025, they will be removing it. That's what's being advised. And we do not have a definite date as of yet. We're still waiting on that. So, so we just have to wait for the next instruction from IRCC. And in regards to LMIA processing, which is a different organization that's doing it, which is ESDC, they are quite delayed. It's taking approximately 25 weeks or so right now for the processing time.
Next question is, I recently completed a culinary management program at George Brown College after finishing my +2. I received my work permit in July and have been working as a Thomas chef at Loudray, Toronto. I am currently uncertain about which province I should choose to continue my career and live in. Would you advise me on which province would be the best option for my career and immigration prospects, considering my background and work experience?
Okay, so you have been a commis chef. That's what you've been mentioned. Well, chefs, cooks, they have been removed even in the AIP Atlantic provinces. So it is a tough occupation. Whereas, as I did mention, express entry programs still have cooks in their trade categories. But you are not a cook, you are a chef. So you will come under the general category, provided your duties do match as per the chef and not the cook. That is something you need to check it out. And provincial pathways, as I'm repeating again, not all provinces are welcoming this particular job occupation. So make sure you have an employer that is supportive and do look out for the pathways, as every province is very unique, have their own pathways. We will, if you do have further questions, you can reach out to us.
Great. Okay, so that's the end of the questions that we have with us right now. And we have some questions in the chat box as well. Do you have some time to answer those too?
Yeah, maybe we can answer a few of them.
Sure. I'll stop the sharing. Okay. I got a question asking, I am recent graduate in business analytics. What are the possible PR pathways for me currently in Nova Scotia? So I want to know if I should continue here or move to any other provinces.
Okay, yeah. Well, you are currently in Nova Scotia. Uh, Nova Scotia, as I mentioned, they have their provincial nominee allocation numbers have been reduced. I do know a lot of people, even if applying through AIP program, it's still open. The program is still open, accepting business analyst. However, their numbers have been cut. So I do know a lot of people, they have waited till the end of their work permits. Still, they haven't received a invitation. So they are very distressed. So another thing to be noted is, say you have your work permit ending and you have no option. Well, even if worst case you got to go outside Canada, you still can gain experience outside Canada and use it for your permanent residence applying as a Canadian in the Canadian experience class. So that is also an option that you can look at. Since permanent residence is very competitive, it's very unfortunate that some of the very qualified people will not be able to get permanent residence. It's very disheartening to see that, but that is what they have only certain allocations for permanent residence in Canada.
We have a question from Francisca Faris asking, please provide update details for the new program, Home Caregiver, that will open on March 31st. Is the new Home Caregiver program an express entry?
Okay, the home caregiver, it's a pilot program that will open on March 31st. It's for workers in Canada that will open up. And the criteria are fairly simple as long as you have some kind of related work experience in the field. It's mainly focused for people who have been working in Canada in that particular stream, either work experience or some kind of training, and you need a full-time job offer from an employer who is ready to support you with a caregiver full-time job offer.
We have a question from Marcus Mathew. IQAS or WES, IELTS or CELPIP, which among these is better?
Okay, IQAS or WES, I didn't talk about it in my presentation. Like WES is fairly simple. The processing time is quite less. That's why it's popular. Whereas ICAS, it looks at some of your masters, which is not credited with WES. A lot of people, they do ICAS and they are able to get the equivalent as masters itself. So it all depends on which university you studied. If WES has your university has an accredited list, go for the WES, which is the first option that you need to sort out after, as it is more faster. And CELPIP or IELTS. Well, IELTS, you would have written it when you first initially came to study in Canada. Quite a lot of you know how the format works. You're speaking to a human being. So you do have that somebody responding back to you. Whereas CELPIP is a full computerized program. You are even talking to a computer, so not everybody is comfortable with that kind of a communication. So there are practice tests that are available online where you can practice and see. Both are testing for English language, just the formats are different for both the tests. So I know a lot of people who have gone for CELPIP, whereas after going for that, they're not able to score back. They go back to IELTS, they're good with it. So whereas the other way also happens, where people who did IELTS, they go to CELPIP, they are able to score well. So it's a choice, it's a personal choice, how you are able to move around, maneuver the test.
Leon's Kyriakos has asked, are college lecturers included in the educational occupations mentioned in category-based or only applicable for elementary teachers?
Well, there is a list that IRCC has mentioned in there, the category-based selections. So they have the NOC codes also mentioned in there. So if your NOC code duties do match what is given in there, you will be able to choose your occupation. So basically, they have elementary school teaching assistants are there. There is kindergarten teachers, secondary school teachers, and which was what was the exact question? Sorry,
Uh, are college lecturers included in educational occupations mentioned in category-based group?
Yeah, college lecturers. Well, it says elementary school and kindergarten teachers, and not really. From what is mentioned in here, it is not part of the NOC codes unless you are able to uh, tweet or making sure that your NOC code do match. But as per the list that they have given out, it's basically elementary and secondary school teachers and people with disability are part of that education list, and ECA instructors and assistants are there.
Another question from Shamim Ahmad. What if I'm working in the insurance industry, but I was graduated from another program? Under ON International Students Stream, can I submit a profile if I have a job offer letter within the same program that I graduated from, but I don't have a bachelor's or master's, just a 2-year Canadian program?
Okay, so are you referring to, he's referring to ONIP or the express entry?
I think he's referring to both. Like he has a job in the insurance industry, but was graduated from another program.
Okay, all right. So basically, the ONIP program, they do not have a category-based draw for insurance brokers. It's only for express entry. It's under the STEM category, that occupation is. So if you are part of it, express entry is not asking you for your education and work experience to be matched. So even if you don't have education in that field and you're working in that field, as long as it's not a self-employed occupation, you're having an employer-employer relationship with your company, you have pay stubs, payrolls, you should be okay with that.
In OENP, an in-demand skill program, only employment letter required. What about the wage requirement for ONIP?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, sure. In ONIP, in-demand skill program, I think the person is asking, like, the person just needs just an employment letter. And what about the wage requirement for ONIP program?
Well, every occupation based on your NOC code, you do have specific wage requirements. It's not a general wage requirement. So based on your NOC code and the region that you are working, they have a median wage, they have it on the job bank website. You need to go look into that and see which is particularly for your region. So we'll take the last question and we'll wind it down.
So Ansari Latif has asked, I have been working as a pharmacist over the years in Muscat. What are the possibilities to settle down in Canada? Please advise. Thanks.
Sorry, what was his occupation?
So he has been working as a pharmacist in Muscat for more than many years. Yeah.
Okay, so pharmacy is a very licensed profession. It's a regulated profession in Canada. You need to basically, if you need to be working as a pharmacist in Canada, you need to get the licensing in here, basically get your education and your work experience assessed with your regulatory body in Canada. And so they will tell you if you need to do further exams or need to do more courses, and you need to get your equivalency basically to get started to work here as a pharmacist.
All right, so that's the end of the questions, and we have had like many narrowed down questions as well. So if you guys want to still clear your concerns, the contact details are on the screen. You can stay connected with York Immigration through their email address, phone number, or through their Instagram page. Thank you so much, Ms. Mathew, for conducting this wonderful webinar. I hope everyone got a wonderful opportunity to know what's happening in Canada, how to explore different pathways to PR, citizenship, or their PGWP. Once again, thank you so much for everyone joined today. Thank you so much, Lisman.
Yeah, so just basically to conclude it, PR is very competitive in Canada, and I just want to say narrow down your options when you initially arrive in Canada. So you do have time to fulfill the criteria of the option and stay focused throughout. It is all about having the right skills and strong language scores and choosing the best PR stream. Wishing you all the best, and we are here to help you out. And we will have this webinar on our YouTube channel as well shortly. So as you can see in there, we are on Instagram, YouTube. Follow us and stay in touch with us and reach out to us with your queries. We do have initial free consultation where we will be addressing your general concerns, and we will tell you on the next steps what needs to be done. So thank you all.